Hey, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you. Long weekend here for us in the U.S. Some of us are counting our winnings on NVIDIA. Others are fighting the Linux wars. I thought that war was done. And in the meantime, AI is proving to be the secret weapon in the revenge of ITSM. All that and more on Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. Alan Schimmel here for Techstrong Gang. It's Tuesday. We've got a full boat of stories and news and topics to cover. Let me tell you who we've got on the gang with me this morning. First of all, it's kind of a normal gang, no special guest. But first of all, joining us from her perch up in San Angelo, Texas, it's our editor for Techstrong AI, Techstrong ITSM, and Digital CXO, our own Amanda Razzini. Anyway, Razzani. Amanda, welcome. How are you?
Good. Just getting back from another technology conference. It went well.
Good. Glad you made it home. Joining Amanda, also from his perch, which is a little higher at top, a higher mountain, way up in the Rocky Mountains. It's our CTO and resident analyst for Techstrong Research, principal analyst, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitch, welcome. How are you?
It's good to see everybody's made it back home between Mike and Amanda. So
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of back home, from Barcelona, by way of Newark, New Jersey, it's our own Chief Content Officer, Mike Brizard. Hey, Mike.
Hey, good to be home.
It's hard. Newark, it never goes easy.
No, it never does. And I think, it took me longer to get from Newark to Fort Lauderdale than it did to get from Barcelona to Newark.
Yeah, it's a Newark thing.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. Anyway, hey, we've got a lot to go over on Techstrong today. I was at a friend's daughter's graduation party 2 weeks ago. I was talking to his older cousin. The guy's like a assistant mayor for Davie, Florida. And he knows I'm in tech, so he was talking tech with me, and he was asking me about some tech companies. And, from a stock point of view for his portfolio. And I said, well, did you ever hear of this NVIDIA company? He said, no. I said, oh, they're big on these AI chips. He says, I got something in AI, Vita something. I said, you sure it's not NVIDIA? He said, wait, let me look. He looks it up. This guy's been sitting on NVIDIA stock for about 8 years now.
Yikes.
He said, oh, yeah, I've done pretty good in it. I said, yeah, you've done pretty good in it. But, this is why I still have to work. Where was I 8 years ago? But NVIDIA is still surging.
Stupid money's not so stupid.
Right. Stupid money's pretty smart. I'm the stupid one. But what's going on? I thought I thought it peaked and it was coming down, but.
So, and I wonder, I'm asking this question myself because NVIDIA, if you saw their report last week, they're like a 400% jump in data center revenue, which is where they record most of the stuff for GPUs and APIs. And it's off the charts, and it's probably going to continue for a little while on that pace. But IT, much like nature, abhors a vacuum, and there's things going on in the world that kind of lessen our dependency on NVIDIA because a lot of folks are getting a little concerned about being locked into NVIDIA.
Yes.
We have, if you look beyond the hardware, there's CUDA, which is their software for writing to the parallel framework, which is nominally open source. And then there's NIMS, which is a microservices framework that adds a layer of abstraction so that I can programmatically invoke things like Kubernetes underneath it. But, they're not real open source in the sense that they don't belong to a consortium, and only people writing code for this thing seem to work for NVIDIA.
It's Big Brother open source is what it is. But here's the thing. We on Gang, I guess it was a week or so ago, we had Microsoft did a deal with AMD for AI chips for people on Azure. We're seeing Intel and all of the usual suspects and some new guys come out with some, I want to call them next-gen GPUs or next-gen AI chips. Is NVIDIA getting good while the getting's good, or do they just have this built-in advantage that they're the next Intel.
Yeah, I think the lock-in is this software layer that shows up because I'm not going to be able to really take CUDA and maybe NIMS to a small degree onto those other processors so easily. And we have another generation of AI processors that are coming down the pike because one of the things about GPUs is they're designed for graphics. And the reason we use them is that they're great at parallel processing, but we don't need the graphics overhead. So we're going to, so someday we're going to see a class of AI chips specifically designed for that. There are folks out there like, Chris Leitner, who wrote Swift, who's trying to drive something called Mojo, which is based on Python. That's going to enable people to write things that look like CUDA. So the community is starting to kind of rally around with software to kind of break that lock-in. It's not going to happen overnight, but I'm not quite clear we're totally sold in that, AI equals NVIDIA. And I think when I look at Wall Street, it seems to. But
they're sold in. I mean, Mitchell, Amanda, we grew up throughout our careers, and some of our careers have been a little longer than others, where, it was Intel, and then there were some imitators, AMD. Every couple generations, they put on a good fight that said their latest chip was as good or better than the latest Intel chip. But, it was Intel, then the x86 architecture, and then, of course, we moved to more RISC-based, ARM-based architectures now. But I don't think any of us want to be locked in. And I think, to your point, Mike, that's why everybody's sort of getting a little antsy.
Yeah.
Except Wall Street. They're counting their money.
Yeah. I think
on that stock. Go ahead, Amanda.
Well, I think business leaders definitely don't want to see a monopoly in this area. And like you were talking about, it's kind of right now, the whole supply chain all links back to NVIDIA. And if there's a bottleneck somewhere, there's an issue for all businesses. So there are, we have heard of some companies trying to produce their own chips. So far, not anywhere near the level to compete, but there are some companies working on it. I think OpenAI even talked about producing their own chips a while back. And I had an interview with a company coming out of stealth mode trying to produce a new chip that they thought was going to be the latest and greatest. So, we'll see how it plays out.
There are a lot of these chip projects out there, but they all seem to go back to the same fabs. And so we're all short of chips anyway, because none of those fabs seem to be increasing capacity anytime soon. But Mitch, what are your thoughts about what can I do as an IT person to kind of not get myself locked into this thing 3 years from now?
Well, I think to your point, we're dealing with both a hot market and what we perceived at least as a scarcity of AI chips, NVIDIA chips, and that's really accelerated. I think the third factor is you don't ramp up a new chip product, whether not ignoring the fab issues, just creating a new AI chip is not any small matter. So we've got a time lag for these other alternatives to start to make a difference in market, especially with Intel, from where they're starting. I think we're talking about the hardware fabric of this, right? When we're speaking of chips, and you mentioned CUDA, which is sort of the bane of people's existence because it is only really functional on NVIDIA chips, largely so. And that's why this Mojo effort is so interesting, because it isn't Python, but it's based on the Python language. So if you know Python, you can now write in something that will be much more higher performance based. And I definitely see that taking off, or other similar kind of approaches like that, in addition to just libraries that you could develop within Python. So if I'm in IT, if I'm heavily invested in data centers, then I care about, what do I need for AI chips in my facilities? If I'm not as heavily invested in data centers, then I'm looking at, what's AWS doing with their chip? What's AWS doing with NVIDIA? What's Azure doing, et cetera, down the line, right? Because they all have their own chip strategies, as well as partnering with folks like NVIDIA. So I think NVIDIA, a lot of it is being at the right place at the right time too, right? I mean, who knew they were going to be the cyber currency platform? Just that processor works really well. The one thing I'll throw in too, though, is I think the thing we might be surprised by with the Apple conference coming up, developer conferences coming up, is, they've been putting NPUs, neural processing units, as part of their A chip and also the M chip. series, but nobody's known if they're using them for anything. So are we suddenly going to see this new capacity exposed to developers to do things on iPhones and Macs and iPads and things?
Wouldn't that be a bitch that Apple almost, unconsciously backs into AI chips?
There's a lot of unconscious backing in behavior here between the two companies.
Yeah.
If you notice the trend.
It is. Yeah. We'll see. I'm interested.
Wow. Right. Without shades of Steve Jobs.
Sleeper must awaken.
But let me say something on this though too, Mitch. You bring something up. With the advent of cloud and virtualization, many folks in IT were abstracted out of the hardware chip discussion, right? Because when you think about it, do you know what Google Cloud? You're in Google Cloud. Do you know what hardware you're on? You're on the Google platform.
I mean, I know, but that's my job.
Well, but no, many IT people aren't, and it's the same with AWS. It's the same with Microsoft. We were abstracted out because we're at the hypervisor, and we just go from the OS up. And if we're doing, platform as a service, we're going even from above the OS, and that's it. No one cares anymore. Is it an x86 chip? Is it what's the architecture I'm on? It's just a compute platform. So for many people, other than stockholders and you, or stock market players and you, do they really care?
I think they care when they can't get the GPUs and when the costs are high, because today, if I want to use GPUs in the cloud, I'm like signing 6-month, year-long leases. And it's not like I'm really benefiting from the cloud economics the way I do on traditional VMs. So the conversation's a little bit different around GPUs. A lot of folks are, we talked in a previous show, because of that cost, they're trying to figure out, can I go to Dell and HPE and get GPUs in a server that they go find for me? Maybe, we'll see. There's a lot of folks who are trying to use, as we've talked about in the past, other processors to run the inference capability, but the other processors don't process in parallel. So there's a bit of a performance hit when you go do that, but at least you can get your project running on some sort of endpoint somewhere. There's a lot of decisions to be made now that IT people do care about. And it all comes back to that, GPU, can I get to it and at what cost?
Look, necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. And I think people will figure out what's the most efficient, best way to do these things.
So wait, coming full circle, what year is stupid money shorting NVIDIA?
Not this year. Look, and please don't believe me in any stock market tips or anything I give you, because I'm still here doing this instead of on some island somewhere driving. I wanted to drive my boat today, but I had to work. So if I was smart about stock, I'd be on the boat today.
At least you got a boat.
But at least I do have a boat. You're right. But look, I think NVIDIA is locked into a leadership catbird seat here for at least the next 24 to 48 months is how I see it. Because once you got that pole position, it's hard. I mean, people got to work twice as hard to overcome you. So
I think they are and they aren't, Alan, because they are from a who's there, who's got the capacity, who's owning the market at the moment. If we do see things like Mojo start to take off, it's the CUDA, right, that locks you into NVIDIA. And if we see things like Mojo start to take off, now people have sort of that cloud option of, okay, I can use multiple underlying hardware platforms. If we're stuck in the land of CUDA, then we're on a long train.
So I'm just sitting here, Mitchell, imagining to myself, what do people who aren't in this, if someone happens by chance to come through YouTube or something and listen to it, and here you got Mitchell saying, hey, you know what's going to happen? It's CUDA that locks you in, but if you got some Mojo, you're okay. What do we got? What is this world?
It's all slang, tech slang.
Right? Mojo, CUDA. Let's go to war over Linux. That's coming up next. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about these Linux wars that are cropped up again. The folks at Alma Linux, which is for lack of a better phrase, a fork/clone of RHEL from Red Hat, now have their own little technical steering committee that they've invited folks to participate in, which is another signal from them that they are going to be more open about the future development of Linux than, say, a lot of people ding Red Hat for. And this is not the only Linux distribution that's running around out there, but it seems like the split in the marketplace is coming down to large enterprises still like to have a subscription from somebody like Red Hat, but big companies that provide hosting services and all this other stuff are like going, we're not going that path. So there's going to be multiple flavors of Linux floating around, and some people will cross back and forth between these things. But you've seen this war before.
We have. Well, there's always been multiple flavors of Unix floating around, right? There's Ubuntu, there's SUSE, there's Debian, there's multiple flavors of Linux floating around. I think to me, the interesting piece of this, and we covered it while you were out cavorting around Gaudi and stuff in Barcelona.
I was getting me educated.
That's how you were getting educated from the Bronx. But the fact of the matter is we saw this with, we had someone on last week with HashiCorp and OpenTofu. Actually, it was an interview I did. It's up on Techstrong TV with one of the founders of OpenTofu. This is an open source issue. This is about Red Hat did something that pissed people off in the open source industry to the point where they wanted a fork. Right. And it's around not just RHEL, but I think it's also around Syntax, which is the other Linux distro they had bought. And they changed their licensing. And not only did they change their licensing, they changed like the frequency of major and minor upgrades and stuff like this. And a lot of people weren't unhappy enough to go out and fork. You got this Alma and you have Rocky. Mm-hmm. Rocky's that is a huge following now too, Rocky Linux. My personal opinion is it's a good thing. Yeah. The more Linuxes are out there, the more they'll compete with each other to bring the best product to market. And I think for many Linux users, and don't forget, we're talking about Linux here. This is the open source poster child. For many Linux users, the more open it is, the more community is involved in steering it and guiding it and so forth, the better the Linux it is. And if they can carve out a niche for themselves here because of like this engineering steering committee and community involvement, more power to them. I think Red Hat's going to have to make a decision here, or IBM, whatever you want to call it. You can't be a little bit pregnant or a little bit open source.
There you go. Mitchell, do you think that the vendors underestimated the ability of the open source community to rally around a quote unquote fork anytime there's a license change? Because it does seem like when I talk to those people, man, they're pissed.
We've talked about this before is our enterprises or businesses truly altruistically behind open source in the spirit of it? Or when financial conditions change, the board changes, leadership changes, suddenly the model changes. Now you can debate why Red Hat changed its RHEL model to a business source or whatever we want to call the license now. But you had to expect the counter to a reaction to that is, well, then community sourced spinoffs or forks, Alma being one of them, is going to get more prominence. Is already very, very well supported and liked by many people. And I think putting this steering committee together just sort of solidifies that, okay, we are going to have a transparent and visible process about how it's going to be managed. So, I don't think Red Hat cares. I think Red Hat has got its market of customers and it doesn't want to, fight the open source wars anymore. Yes, they're providing open source, but to their customers, and okay, but that's not the Linux that we used to know. So I haven't, having built products on like CentOS, and then suddenly CentOS kind of falls out of favor because of what Red Hat does. I think we've learned our lesson, Red Hat and Linux in this open source model. It has its own view of the world, and you have to be careful what part of that strategy you buy into.
We have this ongoing discussion in the Kubernetes world about why isn't there or should there be a long-term release version of Kubernetes that's supported by the CNCF, because a lot of that is done by the folks who provide the distributions of Kubernetes. Yet it seems to me that the open source community, if they were really torqued, could, instead of letting these vendors emerge to provide quote unquote curated services, build something that is, here's the innovative track line, and then here's the long-term release track line for the enterprise. And they could say to them, at least you can standardize on that. And then the dependency on services from curated providers becomes less. And I think that that's the path they're going to wind up going down eventually. They're going to be like this bifurcated two-path road.
But isn't that what Red Hat tried to do here?
Well, that's what they originally were doing. And then they pulled that one, which was kind of like, basically because they said, too many companies were providing hosting services and things like that, and they weren't getting paid for that. And they were like, that's not going to make sense for us.
We're talking apples and oranges. I'm talking about there was a fast track release and stable release program. Mm-hmm. I thought that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, they were, well, they had they had one of those for RHEL,
right?
And they had one for Kono and CentOS, and then they tried to push everybody in CentOS into the RHEL fast track innovative thing and all the Fedora stuff and everything they do on that side. But the CentOS people were saying, we're not going.
But see, I think Alma's got it right. They're basically taking a page out of Red Hat, early Red Hat, right? Mm-hmm. It's RHEL binary compatible. So if you've been using that, that's great. It's a performance stability focused version of Linux. It provides commercial support that you can sign up for. So it's not just the freewheeling open source community. It's a kind of enterprise grade. Now you could say, are you going to run SAP on it? Maybe not, but maybe so. I don't know. I've tried to do that, but it's a very stable and usable Linux in a business environment or a hosting environment. And I think they're in a good position to, you were talking about nature absorbs the vacuum, right? Red Hat shift creates this opening, and people like Alma are going to step in it. They are.
All right. The rebels are getting ready to fight the empire, man.
By the way, this is also coming out. This is coming out as a new series on Netflix, The Linux Wars. So I think it's in August. It'll be starting. So David Brin is the author. So
David Brin, who plays Linus?
Stuff. What's that?
Who plays Linus?
I thought you were playing Linus.
No.
Oh, maybe it's Amanda.
Amanda
you should play
as Linus. Okay. I mean, to quote The Godfather, every couple of years, it's good to get a little blood out. It gets, some of the bad feelings out of the way, and we got to go through this stuff, Mikey.
We went from Linus to Godfather. Okay.
Yeah, well, everything I learned watching those movies. Anyway, hey, let's make peace here. We're going to take a break on Techstrong Gang. We're back with the revenge of ITSM.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.
Hey folks, we're back. If you've been following IT for a while, you've known that there has always been a little bit of tension between the DevOps folks and the traditional IT administrators that use graphical tools to manage IT. They kind of fight a little bit over who's going to manage what workloads. And what we're starting to see is that the ITSM folks think AI is going to, give them an edge again against all those DevOps guys, because from their perspective, they're looking at things like SolarWinds is now injecting Gen AI into ITSM. Nutanix, when I was in Barcelona, was showing their Gen AI tools into their platform, and they're very ITSM centered. Even Microsoft's now in on the act over in on a side stage in Seattle last week, they were showing something called Automatic, which, lets you automatically deploy Kubernetes clusters on AKS, and you don't need to know anything about programming. And so there's this push in the debate that seems to be going on that says, are the ITSM folks going to get new tools so they don't have to be software engineers to let them manage at scale? Or the alternative approach is, those small DevOps teams are just going to use their expertise in Gen AI to take over more workloads. And, there seems to be this push and pull in the system.
Mike, this reminds me of Yankees and Red Sox fans prior to 2003, right? The Red Sox fans used to think everything, they looked through the universe through a I hate Yankees lens. And so everything that happened to them or didn't happen to them was a result of those damn Yankees. Where Yankee fans, the Red Sox, they were just some sad sack team that hadn't won a pennant since they traded Babe Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not like that anymore. I'll give them credit. They've had a good run. It's probably over. It's the same thing here with DevOps. DevOps people, no, we don't necessarily hate ITSM people. We'd love nothing better than to have AI come in, allow them to automate some more of their processes so it moves a little faster at today's business level. If we can make ITSM move at today's speed of business through AI and automation, I think it's good for everyone. There's no need to get territorial or put up silos. It's about kumbaya. And so good on these people who are looking to make ITSM better, faster, more automated, inject a little AI in there. I think that rising tide will lift all boats, including the USS DevOps.
Part of the conversation we were having in Barcelona is, though, this doesn't automatically happen, right? The ITSM folks have to still up-level their skills. I mean, just because I got a new tool doesn't mean I know how to use it. And one of the big conversations was, at what rate is that actually going to happen? Because a lot of the ITSM folks are kind of just used to clicking on things and things happen, and they don't have maybe as deep an understanding of what's happening as a DevOps engineer might have. So I don't know, Mitchell, what's your take on this? But, my sense is there is a lot of angst in that side of the house. They're looking forward to grabbing some of the more high-end workloads and feeling a little jealous about that, but maybe they're underestimating what it takes to do that.
Well, the last time I checked with a Gen AI bot, it didn't care whether you worked in operations or ITSM or DevOps or the executive suite, right? It's pretty democratized technology. And I think any human, they're going to look for new opportunities and tools and technologies going to help them do their job and do it better. I think this is a little bit of fighting the last war, when the silos between IT and operations, and you know what, who really cares? If you want to fight those wars, then I think it's just perpetuates the battle. Hey, let's equip people with technology that's going to help them do their job. If people in operations are even faster or more effective or can do more, all the better for all of us, right? We want, the thing about DevOps is that it really did help kind of lift all boats, right? That rising tide idea of elevating security, elevating operations, elevating now platform engineering and SRE. And not solely because of DevOps, but it did kind of help democratize that we need to work together. And AI is democratizing technology and access to it. So it's inevitable. Let's support them. Let's help them.
I say the same thing. And Mitchell, I don't think we could minimize the role of SRE, site reliability engineers, SRE, and the platform engineers here.
Mm-hmm.
I think they inherit the ITSM mantle, right? It's not necessarily ITSM versus DevOps. It's how does this all fit in? And I think platform engineering and SRE, which though they may be new names to the audience, the jobs they do lay in this traditional ops field.
I think
that's what I was going to
go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I don't know where the conflict is here. I mean, there should be some sense of a collaboration between these two. And I mean, AI is going to infiltrate every aspect of business because everyone wants to be more efficient and have tools to simplify processes. So I just say there should be no conflict. It should be a collaboration.
I would say, I would love to have Kumbaya, but the reality is, and maybe it just comes down to how the teams are organized, right? They're usually two different teams in these organizations. Then they compete for workloads with each other. And so maybe we need to reorganize IT.
Well, and so that's at the heart of DevOps, right? We need to break down those silos. Mm-hmm. And, look, I don't blame those Red Sox fans for hating the Yankees, but we're all baseball fans. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Now the Yankees are doing well. He's more generous.
Yeah, the Yankees have been doing pretty. How are we going to sign Soto? That's what keeps me up at night. But anyway, I think honestly, nothing would make me happier than to see a resurgence of ITSM leveraging AI.
I would go to Mitch's point, though. There's something here about fighting the last war. And
yes, there is.
And I have to wonder, a lot of this stuff is leading towards where somebody who's neither IT or DevOps is just going to say to Gen AI, build me a website, and that'll be that. So, how automated can automated get? Because, it may ultimately be that end users are going to go, thanks for playing for the last 3 decades, but we got to move on.
The Yankees win. I was waiting to throw that in there. It may very well be. Look, we haven't really done a lot of talking about this new 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0. But you can start doing stuff like that now, right? Just talk to it, tell it, right? And describe it, what you wanted to build, and off it goes. But arose by any other name, that could still be some ITSM folks who are doing that. And, again, it comes down to this, guys. It's not about AI replacing people. It's about people leveraging AI. And whether you're an ITSM, an SRE, a platform engineer, a DevOps team, you need to be leveraging AI to 10x your productivity, to 10x what you do, to be more valuable to the organization.
Let me throw this in there. I think ITSM is in a great position to leverage AI and to take this on. The last war was ITSM is too dogmatic and strict and whatever, things that it got, knocked for. And DevOps got knocked for. We don't need any other people. We just need developers, all can go away. Sounds kind of like AI, right? And we all found out that that's not true. But I think version 4 of ITSM, they adopted it. They stepped back and said, wait a minute, we got to adopt a lot of these ideas that are in DevOps and behind Agile and collaboration, things like that. And that took a different turn. So if you assume for the moment that momentum will continue, I think the operations ITSM groups are in a great place to leverage this and be part of, what's happening in it. We don't have to fight about it.
I theoretically agree with you, except, all that DevOps stuff was on page, 422 of an IDLE 4.0 manifesto that nobody read.
Well, I read it. To use I know what that hardware is.
Mitch, I agree with you though. But, I think it would do us well to stay away from kind of the war, the W word to describe these things. I think all of us in this age of AI are, putting our feelers out and turning on our spidey senses to figure out how we play and how we fit and how we best do this. And there's going to be some jostling. There's going to be some uncertainty. There's going to be some experimentation. I think that's par for the course.
I think that there is such a thing as DevOps envy among the ITSM set, and, some hard feelings still that have not quite been mollified just yet, and we'll see how it plays out.
Red Sox fans. All right. I think that's going to end us here for Techstrong Gang today. You know what? We're heading into the month of June. It's going to be a big month. We've got a big announcement around Techstrong TV and Techstrong Gang coming out this month. Stay tuned for it. Mitchell, you and I are out in Santa Clara this week at our first Tech Field Day event for App Dev. And then that should be a lot of fun. And then we are also in New York this month we're going to have a live satellite along with CloudBees for the Platform Con engineering, which will probably have about 25 to 35,000 people registered worldwide. It's based in London, though it's virtual. There'll be a big London physical presence, and New York and Austin and San Francisco and Shanghai. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, we'll be back here on Thursday with another great Techstrong Gang. Stay tuned for the rest of Techstrong TV. Until then, this is Alan Schimmel. We're out.